What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we really shine a light on how the Jets are going to rebuild their wide receiver room. I mean, there has been a lot of talk in Jets latest episodes and out there in the ether in Jetsland about the wide receiver room, right? We know about potentially re-signing, extending Garrett Wilson. We know the Jets have recently cut Davante Adams, and they've let Alan Lazard go ahead and look for a trade. But as I've been saying here, this is a very interesting time in the NFL calendar as teams need to get under the salary cap for the new league year that starts next week. And quite frankly, pass catchers are really a way for teams to get under the cap. I mean, look at Jacksonville, who traded away Christian Kirk, released Evan Ingram. Look at Seattle, who released Tyler Lockett and is allowing DK Metcalf to go seek a trade. The Niners traded Deebo Samuel away. The Los Angeles Rams are rumored to make a move with Cooper Kupp, whether it is a trade or just outright cutting him to save about $25 to $30 million in cap space. The Jets have made these moves, most notably the Davante Adams cut, and that has saved them a ton of money. They now have, get this, the Jets, when I started talking to you guys, the Jets had only about $23 million in cap space. Now, the Jets have over $50 million in cap space. That is actually top 10 in the league as we head into the new league year, okay? Given new GM Darren Mogi, new head coach Aaron Glenn, a lot of kind of assets, a lot of capital to go out there and rebuild not only the wide receiver room, but the entire Jets roster. Now, here's the deal. I actually believe that in high-priced items, wide receiver is not where we are going to go. We are not going to go ahead and break the bank for some stud wide receiver. I know there are big-name wide receivers out there like a Stephon Diggs, like a Keenan Allen, like an Amari Cooper. I do not believe that is going to happen. I believe there are other position groups that are more priority where the Jets may spend a bigger chunk of this 50-plus million. Okay, I think offensive line, for example. I think the secondary, for example. I think defensive line and edge rusher, for example, are where the Jets may go shopping in the kind of higher tiers for players to add to the green and white. I don't think they're going to do it at wide receiver. The only problem is the Jets really do not have much behind Garrett Wilson at wide receiver. If you look at the roster right now, assuming that Alan Lazard is not on this roster as well, there is not much left. We know Garrett Wilson can be a Pro Bowl caliber stud number one wide receiver. There is really only a couple of wideouts even on the roster. The first that I think does bear noticing is Malachi Corley. Malachi Corley was a third-round draft pick last year, but he only played in 9 games. He only caught 3 balls for 16 yards. I think most Jets fans and the Jet regime is hoping that Malachi Corley really can take a step forward and become, I think, a number 3, a number 4 kind of wide receiver. He came out of college and they called him the Yak King. Okay, people compared him to Deebo Samuel in the way he could be utilized, right? When the ball is in his hands, that he can do some special things. I think there is still room to believe that Malachi Corley can realize some of that potential and be the number 3, number 4 wide receiver for the Jets. So that puts Garrett Wilson at 1, Malachi Corley at 3. There's also Xavier Gibson. Xavier Gibson only caught 6 balls last year. He did have a touchdown. He is more of a return man. He's more of a special teams kind of guy. So maybe he's a 4th or 5th kind of wide receiver. I think the Jets need a number 2 wide receiver. That's where I think they are going to go shopping. That's where I think the need truly is for the Jets, because Garrett Wilson is the one. Corley and Gibson can be kind of your lower level, return guys. Where will they go? I think there are a number of options at wide receiver in the free agent market. Now, I told you, I don't think it's going to be a big name. If they wanted a big name, heck, they could keep Alan Lazard at $11 million. They could keep Davante Adams at a ton of money. I don't think they're going to do that. I think there are going to be names, not the Amari Coopers, not the Stephon Diggs, but a tier or 2 lower that are, quite frankly, solid veterans in this league who are going to command less money, who are going to command between $4 and $7 million a year. That's the kind of level I think we are at. And here are some of the names that I think could be interesting. Again, as a number 2 wide receiver for the New York Jets in what is a rebuilding of a culture. Remember, Aaron Glenn, Darren Mogi, they want to come in and rebuild the culture. So you need a kind of stable veteran presence in that wide receiver room. Here are some options to keep an eye on. First is Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks was in Dallas last year, but he only played 10 games. He's 32 years old, but he has been a kind of consistent wide receiver in this league. He had 26 catches, 3 touchdowns last year on 54 targets, right? Now, he doesn't excite people necessarily, but he's a shorter guy, kind of would complement Garrett Wilson, I think, really nicely, has seen it all in this league, and can really be a veteran presence. Brandon Cooks is not going to command a ton of money. I think he could be an option. Similarly, if you want to stay close in the New York area, how about a guy like Darius Slayton? Darius Slayton, only 28 years old, was more productive last year, 573 yards. He did get into the end zone twice. He had 70 targets. He is known as a kind of over-the-top guy. He played in 16 games. He knows the area from being with the Giants. I don't think he's going to command a ton of money. He could be a name to watch or an option. Another guy could be Demarcus Robinson, who was with the Los Angeles Rams. Again, a veteran in this league. He's age 31. He had 500 yards receiving last year. He got into the end zone 7 times. He is a taller, lankier guy. He could profile to be a number 2 wide receiver for the New York Jets. I got 2 more for you. How about Tyler Boyd? Tyler Boyd is a guy in Cincinnati. Then he went to Tennessee over the last couple of years, but that didn't really work out. Calvin Ridley became the number 1 over in Tennessee. They have Nick Westbrook-Akini that kind of usurped Tyler Boyd. Boyd, again, another guy around 30. He's age 31, only had 39 catches last year, but he has the experience, another kind of stable veteran wide receiver that's not going to break the bank. Remember, the Jets have this $50 million in cap space, but I think they're going to use the high ticket items elsewhere on the roster. One other name that could be a little bit more exciting because he's younger than everybody else I've mentioned so far is a former Jet. How about Elijah Moore? Elijah Moore is only 25 years old. He did play in all 17 games last year for the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns don't know what they are doing at wide receiver. They have a number of wide receivers, and they are one of those teams that really don't have a ton of cap space at all. Elijah Moore caught 61 balls last year. Elijah Moore is a great slot kind of receiver, a great Y kind of receiver, would be a really good complement to Garrett Wilson, in my opinion. Knows the building, knows some of the people that are still here in the green and white. The last regime let him go. Maybe they bring back Elijah Moore because he's only 25 years old, and he might be the most exciting name of the group, but he's been in this league and I think would be a really good complement to Garrett Wilson, okay? Now, of course, there's also the opportunity of going in the draft. But I don't think it's going to necessarily be that route. Honestly, I've been talking about these first 3 Jet draft picks a lot recently on Jets Latest. I think they're going to go O-line with a guy like Will Campbell. I've been talking about the safety position. I've been talking about the tight end position. I've been talking about guys on the defensive line that could be had, or in the secondary, right? So clearly there's some big name wide receivers. I expect 4 or 5 wideouts to go in the first round. None of them to go at number 7 overall to the Jets. Guys like Ted McMillan, you need to know. Obviously Travis Hunter, the two-way player out of Colorado, who I think will profile more as a defensive back at the NFL level. But there's guys like Matthew Golden out of Texas, Luther Burden out of Missouri, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Those guys will probably be off the board come round 2. Like I said, I think there's 4 or 5 first round wide receivers. Honestly, I don't think the Jets are going to spend the first, second, or third round pick on a wideout. Why? Because they already have a young wideout in Malachi Corley that they drafted last year in round 3. And quite frankly, Garrett Wilson is a young wideout as well. I believe they need a veteran presence there to add to these young wide receivers. But some names to note: Jaden Higgins of Iowa State, Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, Jack Beck out of TCU, and Isaiah Bond out of Texas are wideouts that may be available in rounds 2, 3, maybe they slip to round 4. If we get into round 4 and one of those names are still available, I do believe it is possible that the Jets would grab them and go, kind of to add youth to the wide receiver room. Here's the bottom line. The Jets are, in the next 24, 48 hours, either going to trade or cut Alan Lazard, freeing even more space, getting the Jets to about $60 million, right? I think the Jets are going to see what's out there and invest in a mid-level veteran wide receiver. I think Brandon Cooks, Tyler Boyd are names to watch, and if they are up to spend a little bit more money, a return for Elijah Moore could truly be very, very interesting. Here's the other thing. There are going to be more cuts across the league. There are going to be more guys that are maybe sometimes surprises that they are out of a job and out there on the free agent market. And if they are a solid veteran presence, I think the Jets can go out and grab one. I do believe they are going to spend some of their $50 to $60 million on cap space on a number 2 wide receiver to be a veteran presence and pair with Garrett Wilson for the 2025 Jets. That's a look at how the Jets rebuild the wide receiver room. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to Jets Latest, and make sure you tell all your Jet fans friends, because right here we give you the latest on the Jets next week when free agency begins. Keep it locked right here. I will be telling you all of the targets, all of the priorities, all of the people who could be the newest members of Green and White. That's why you got to subscribe right here to Jets Latest to get the latest on the Jets. Have a great weekend, everybody. We out of here for now. Peace.